Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I hope everything's going well with you and your family. And we're going to be talking about Enneagram Type 5s today. We're going to be looking at a checklist, or you might say like a 20-point personality inventory that is a part of this book, The Enneagram Made Easy. It's the book that I originally started with many years ago. And sometimes it's good to come back and just sort of reread some of these things and see how I feel about it. And there's no great big plan here. We're just going to read through the list, talk about it, maybe laugh about it a little bit, and you might find something challenging in this video to help you grow and move toward health. That's the whole point of this channel, is that we all end up a little bit wiser, a little bit healthier, and a little bit easier to get along with. So before we get started on this list, just a reminder, in the description below is a link to my website, tomlahue.com. I do offer Enneagram coaching packages or single appointments for you or as a couple. You know, the Enneagram is a great tool to help us learn how to get along better with each other. So if you're a 5 married to a 2, for example, or a 5 with a 1, or whatever the combination is, you know, that it tells us a lot about maybe some of the challenges or potential challenges that you might have as a couple. And I want to help you work through those challenges and have the best marriage or the best relationship possible. But a lot of people reach out to me just because they feel stuck in life. They feel like they don't know what's next, or maybe feeling a little overwhelmed or stressed out. Or sometimes people just want to talk about the Enneagram with somebody. So just go to my website if you're interested. Also, I have a lot of classes available on demand and classes that are live on Zoom. As I'm making of this video, there's one coming up really soon, live on Zoom, and I'd love for you to be a part of it. And a lot of resources and some free resources on the store tab. So check that out, and let's get started in this list of 20 points on this checklist to help you see if you're a type 5. And if you are a 5, you know, maybe this would be interesting to see if you agree with these, or maybe some of them you might disagree with. Whatever. Okay, so let's just look at the list. Number one, by the way, you know, 5s are called the observers or the investigators. They tend to have, you know, a bias toward self-reliance and minimalism, and not wanting to have to depend on other people. They see people, you know, as individuals, and everybody should, you know, take care of their own space, and they tend to be very boundary oriented. Often they get lost in information and have a rich, you know, inner life or inner world. Sometimes, you know, can be a little stingy with their time, attention, and resources. It's not like a greed that is for things as much as I don't want people to be intrusive or to engulf in my space, and I don't want to feel obligated to them. That kind of greed or avarice. Okay, so let's look at the first one, and we'll just start down the list and see what happens, okay? Um, I learn from observing, reading, as opposed to doing. I learn from observing and reading, or watching, you know, literally called the observer, right? So learning from sitting on the sidelines, maybe. And this could be a challenge, is sometimes like sitting on the sidelines too long. And at some point, you know, you want to get in the game yourself. But, you know, this could expose you as somebody who's incompetent, you know, somebody that's a dumb, and you don't have the knowledge or the information or the ability or the skill. And so it's safer, and realize you're a fear type. And you may not look like an obvious fear type at times, but notice that sitting back and laying back and observing and learning rather than getting involved in doing is a self-protective measure. And it's not bad. I mean, the rest of us should be observing more and learning more. I mean, the rest of us you could challenge. You think of it like that. Like, part of your gift to the rest of us is to remind us, slow down, you know, think about things first. Why don't you watch and learn and observe first before you just jump into action? But sort of the balance for you might be the other message of, okay, you've observed and watched long enough. You know, it's time for you to throw your hat in the ring, and let's see what you can do. Let's see, you know, how you would save the day, or how you would make things different. Get in there and challenge something. Challenge the status quo. Challenge the way this company's working. Challenge the beliefs and assumptions of people. You know, at your best, you look like an 8, right? The challenger. And so it's good to observe and learn from the sidelines, but at some point you've got to be able to like move toward right action yourself. Are you good at that? Maybe you are. Maybe you've mastered that. I hope so. But, I would say that that probably is kind of a struggle for some fives to sort of protect themselves, and protect themselves from being exposed as somebody who's incompetent. Not that you are incompetent. Relax. We're all friends here. Okay, number two. It's hard for me to express my feelings in the moment. I want to break that down for a second and say, is the first part of that the truth, or is the last part of that the truth, or is it both parts? It's hard for me to express my feelings. Is it hard for you to get in touch with your feelings? I remember talking to a five one time and we had a bunch of chaos going on at work, and I said, how do you feel about this person, their shenanigans and they got mad and left and all that? How do you feel about that? And I just remember him looking at me saying, do you mean, how do I think about that? I just remember thinking, oh, yeah, a five. How do I feel about that? It may not be the most important bit of information, and it may not be even something that he had thought about. Like, how do I feel about this? He was just thinking, like, you know, how do I think about this? And so do you think your feelings? Do you feel your feelings? Can you lean into that forewing, for example, that emotional intuitive stuff? Can you lean into that and feel your emotions? Or do you think your emotions? And then notice the second part of that. It's hard for me to express my feelings in the moment. Is that the problem? Maybe you are in touch with your feelings and you do know how you feel about things, but it might be hard for you to express those feelings in a group or to somebody else. And why? Why is that hard? That's interesting. Why is that hard? If it is a challenge, why is that a challenge? If you know how you feel, why would it be hard for you to share that? Why would it be hard for you to explain that? Is there some defense mechanism there? Are you afraid other people are going to evaluate those feelings and find you silly, or too emotional, or is it just something you don't want to share? Are you afraid that if you open yourself up and share that, then it may create some kind of dynamic that feels exhausting to you? That's just interesting. I wonder what is meant by that statement. Is it meant it's hard for me to engage with my feelings or to express my feelings in the moment? I guess that's what it means because that's what it says. All right, number three. I get lost in my interest and like to be alone with them for hours. I get that a little bit, as a seven who integrates to five. I get very OCD about stuff. Like if I'm interested in something, it's called like hyperfixation. I get a little hyperfixated on something, whatever it is at the time, and I think that might be a little bit the way you experience this as a five is your fixations could be a little bit maybe whatever you're interested in could be a little bit of a hyperfixation for you, which again isn't necessarily bad. I mean, it's that intense focus. I remember one time on The Office where Dwight, who I think is a five, I know some people say he's an eight, but I think he's a five. I remember one time when somebody was like, they said to him, Dwight, I want the complete focus of your attention. I just remember him saying, you couldn't handle my complete focus of my attention. And I think that's a little bit true of fives. Like when they do focus that attention on something, I mean, that's how you master something, right? That's how you master it is that intense long-term focus on something, knowing it, understanding it, observing it, working with it, tinkering with it. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I get lost in my interest. It just may be balance, right? So, what about the people around you? Do they feel like you are invisible? Do they feel like you've abandoned them? Do they feel like you aren't really available, especially emotionally available to them because you're so hyper fixated on what you're focused on? Again, that could be a little bit of a self-protective measure. Fives, I could see them like walking into work and walking past people, maybe being friendly, maybe like sort of like being friendly, but then sort of like longing to get into that office and secluded into their own inner sanctuary, away from all of the distractions, away from all of the petty talk and gossip, away from all of the trouble and relational problems in that office, and just kind of like enter my inner sanctuary and focus on my numbers or focus on my information or focus on my cases that I'm working on. And then coming home and probably being very separate. Like, okay, I left work behind and now I am at home. and probably having that same kind of interaction at home. Like I'm coming in and being friendly to the family and friendly to the kids, and then longing to sort of like enter that inner sanctuary at home, whether it's your, in the old days it was called a den or a study, or your man cave or whatever it is, your library, whatever that place is that you sort of like wander off to and teleport to and become invisible. Maybe you become invisible. Sort of like you just sort of like end up, in that easy chair in your bedroom with your books and your music and your video games and your online chess games or your stock trading or whatever it is. I could see like that becoming a pattern. Like, and when people ask you about work, like, why are you asking me about work? Because that's separate from this world at home. And I can see those lines being maybe very strongly drawn. Just observations that I have as an outsider. Okay. I get lost in my interests and like to be alone with them for hours. And sometimes that inner world, I guess, could be more, delightful or more, um, preferable than the outer world, because the outer world, again, here's where you see the fear type, right? The outer world is filled with demands. The outer world is filled with obligations. It's filled with people who have needs, and they're like vampires. Okay, that's a good way to think about it from a 5 perspective. Is like from 8's perspective, like they have a fort and there's a bunch of settlers outside the fort and maybe some hostiles, right? And so the 8 has to defend themselves and their people in the fort against those outside the fort. But I think with a 5, it's a little more like, imagine walking down the streets of New Orleans, in the 1800s, or London, and you got your coat up and your hat, your top hat down, and it's dark and it's foggy, and you've got to get from your office, to your home, to the manor. And so you're walking down the streets and the gas lights, are burning on either side of you. And there's a movement over in the distance. And is it an alley cat or is it a vampire? And the vampires, they come out at night, right? The vampires come out. And what do they want to do? They want to drain your life. They want to suck the life right out of you with all of their emotional problems and all of their challenges and all of their feelings and all of their needs and all of their obligations. I can see it's like a little bit like that as a 5. Again, maybe I'm way off base here. Put it in the comments. Let's talk about it, okay? But I tend to think of 5s a little bit like that. Like, okay, I've got to get from my car into the office. I got to get past all the vampires. I got to pull my coat up. I got to put my top hat down. And I got to keep my eyes, on a swivel like this. Then I got to get into my office, my inner sanctuary where, I can rest. And I go home and I got to get from my car into that room, and past everybody. So I'm going to smile and I'm going to be friendly and I'm going to talk for 15 minutes and seem very interested in everybody. But ultimately, I just don't want all the conflict and the problems because I want to get away and escape into my inner world where I can sit and play my games, or I can sit and do my research, or I can sit and watch my videos, or my whatever it is that like fills that world, that inner world. A lot of us like 7s, we're the opposite. Like we're too maybe focused on the outer world and maybe need to do a little bit of inner world work. I sit down to read a novel and I'm like, I don't know, there's too many characters. I get lost. Like, why don't I just watch TV? That feels easier. But maybe some of us could do the opposite and give a little more attention to the inner world. I think it's fascinating, that the inner world is so rich for you, or the world of, and to escape away from everybody, to like see the relationship between things and solve things and figure things out, very Sherlock Holmesy. Is that a word? Okay, number 4. I usually experience my feelings more deeply when I'm by myself. Not surprising. Not surprising. You know, you are a withdrawn type. And it's not bad to be a withdrawn type. It just makes sure that you can do the other things too. It's okay to be withdrawn, but there is a time when maybe you need to be more compliant. And knowing that, is maturity. Knowing that, okay, this is a time when I need to come out of my withdrawn space and be more compliant to the needs and demands of my schedule, my agenda, and the people around me. And then there's times when you need to be assertive. So those three things, withdrawn, compliant, and assertive, we learn about them on the Enneagram. And being assertive is like, what's your agenda? Okay, what have you been plotting? What have you been scheming? What's your agenda? Go out there and do it. Go out there, jump over all of the needs of the day, and go out there and bring your agenda to life. Be assertive. Go after something. Be more future oriented. So, being able to move between all three of those, I think, is a good goal for all of us. It's not bad to withdraw. You need to do that, but then you got to be able to do the other thing. Think of it as like you got to plug your batteries in so that you're able to then show up in these other arenas of life as well. So I fully experience my feelings. Number 5, sometimes I feel guilty that I'm not generous enough. Well, I mean, yeah, the sin is greed, right? Or stingy. So I guess you could maybe practice that. I guess you could find some things that are meaningful to you and give those away. And you could give the focus of your attention away. I tell you one thing that you could do immediately that would make a big difference in your relationships is try to compliment people, and try to say something positive to people, like make yourself give those compliments away. Like walk right up to your wife, walk right up to your kid, your teenager, whatever, walk right up to them and say something positive to them. You're like, how would I do that? Where would I even start? You could just thank them for something. Hey, thank you for cleaning up the room. I really appreciate that. Thank you for making dinner. I really appreciate that. Or, hey, tell me what's going on in school. And they start to tell you and then say, wow, that's great. I didn't know that you were on that team at work or at school. And that's really awesome. I'm really proud of you. Can you say those things out loud? It's really awesome. I'm really proud of you. Try to give away some positive statements. Just start there. Start with your words. Your attention and your words could go a long way in helping you recover some of these challenges. I know a couple, and she's a 5, and they're married, but she's decided like I don't have to give any attention to you anymore. Like the Lord told me. The Lord told me. Christian people, right? And I find it so amazing that, and I don't know that it's because she's a 5 that she's like this, but I just find it amazing often that like how we use our religious convictions to justify our unloving, you know. The Lord told me that I don't need to interact with you anymore. I just need to stay married to you. And it's like, I don't think that's what the Bible pictures as a loving marriage. But it's like we have these impulses and compulsions, and then we seek to justify them and the overuse of them, and to the detriment of sometimes the people around us. We're all like that, not just 5s. Everybody's like that. I feel guilty. I'm not generous enough. So balance, right? Balance that self-preservation need you have, and isolation, and all of that. So balance that with generosity, playfulness, with being available. That's a good word for you. Are you available? Are you really available? Because again, the sort of the mindset is that the streets are full of vampires. Well, there are some vampires out there, but notice there's a core belief that you have, or this core fear of being exhausted or depleted. And the rest of us, we don't have that fear as strongly as you do, the fear of being depleted. And what we recognize is that interactions with others are often very fulfilling. Like, not everybody is a vampire. There are many people out there that want to pour into you. They want to, like, engage with you because they want to meet a need within you for community and friendship and relationship. And so what you interpret as depleting, some of the rest of us might interpret as fulfilling or life-giving or life-sustaining or meaningful. It's just interesting. So a little bit of balance there. Okay, what else do we have? Number 6, I try to conceal my sensitivity to criticism and judgment. Yeah. I mean, you're a human being, right? And it doesn't feel good to be criticized, made fun of, or to find out that people don't like you, or they think that you're strange or weird or something like that. And so you might try to very much remain objective in how you view those criticisms, and try to like remove yourself from that and try to be objective about it. But that kind of might just be a self protective strategy because you don't want to be hurt when people don't like you, or you don't want to be hurt when people think you're strange, or you don't want to be hurt when people think that you're whatever the term is that they assign to you. It's a way to protect yourself from criticism. Nobody likes to be criticized. Why do we do it? We do it all the time, right? So just analyzing that judgment and criticism, and maybe wanting to debate with people. Why did you say that? Why do you feel like I'm like that? What did I say? And rather than just letting yourself feel the hurt, getting the feelings, right? Could you just let yourself feel the hurt? Like, oh, that kind of feels painful. It kind of hurts a little bit. Rather than, I want to debate you why you think that such and such is true. All right, number 7, brash, loud people offend me. Yes, 100%. Brash, loud people. 5s, although they don't appear on the surface to be sensitive, like they would not see themselves as being sensitive. I'm not sensitive. I'm objective. I'm rational. They wouldn't see themselves as being hypersensitive, but I think 5s are hypersensitive, like to noise, to loud people, to demands around them, to music, to distractions. I think they're very sensitive to like kids playing in the other room, or I can't hear the news because the kids are playing. They're irritating me. Hypersensitive. Like if I come into your house and let's say you're reading a book and I just sat down and start playing piano, how would you feel about that? Or let's say you're laying in bed and you're trying to take a rest, maybe whatever, and I come in and start folding clothes. I come into your space, I come into your inner sanctuary, you're working, you're saving the world on Civilization or whatever the game is you're playing, or maybe you're doing some work, and I come in and I just start, rifling through all the books and asking you a bunch of questions. There's the sensitivity, right? Oh, why is this person talking to me? Ugh. Okay, conforming is distasteful to me. Conforming, right? So the opposite would be like being yourself or being an individual or being. And I don't think 5s want to be unique and special. You're not 4s, right? I just think 5s want to do their own thing. They just kind of want to be left alone and do their own thing. And if I could just wear chainmail and a Jedi robe and, walk around the streets, I probably would. But then people would want to talk to me and they would think I'm trying to stand out and I'm trying to be special. I'm trying to be different. And I'm really not. I don't want that interaction with people. I don't want people to notice me. Remember, the superpower of 5 is invisibility. I don't want people to stop and ask me these things. If I could wear a kilt, if I could wear, the kind of clothes I'm interested in, whatever it is, then I would. But then people would want to have a whole discussion or debate or conversation. I don't want to do that. So 5s, a little bit of a bohemian, a little bit of like do my own thing, go my own direction, care about what I care about. And why are you talking to me? A little bit like that. So conforming is distasteful to me. Just going along. Notice 6s right next to you. They would probably be the joiners in the group, and 5s, not so much. 5s and 8s, not so much. I like to associate with others who have an expertise in my field. Yes, to identify with those who have the totem. That's what it's called, the totem. Do a little research on that. The social 5 is called the totem 5, But other people that understand, who are, who have the expertise, that, go by the label of doctor or professor or something like that. You like to move in that circle with the people with the knowledge, the people with the information, the insiders. You like to see yourself as one of those people. Who wouldn't? I mean, I guess who wouldn't want that? I mean, who wouldn't want to be seen as somebody who's competent, knowledgeable, a part of the group, the blacksmiths, you want to be a part of the blacksmiths or whatever it is, that you're interested in. I like having the title. Oh, right there it is. Next one. I forgot. Like having the title doctor, professor, administrator, something to feel proud of. You remember, you're a competency type with 1s and 3s, and competent in your information, your position, your knowledge, that people shouldn't question you because you have this position and this knowledge, this information, and the title tells everybody, it announces to them that you're somebody that, shouldn't be I don't know what the word is, taken for granted. You shouldn't be somebody that, that is taken for granted. Number 11. I have been accused of being negative, cynical, or suspicious. All of your observing and analyzing could come across as very negative, debative, questioning, challenging. Remember the five wing force called the iconoclast. So like classing people's icons, challenging them, shooting their ideas down. That's going to feel very negative to people when they say, hey, we could envision this blue, beautiful sky. What makes you say the sky is blue? What makes you say the sky is beautiful? What makes you say, that sort of like questioning, analyzing, debating. Somebody could just think, oh my gosh, I can't take all of this. Like, can we just dream a little? Could we just, somebody like a 7 might feel like that. Why do we have to challenge and question everything? Although, remember, I just told you at the beginning of this video that challenging and questioning things might be exactly what you need to do. So balance, it's all about balance. It's like knowing when. It's not that I as a 7 can't be an idiot and a goofball like I want to be. It's just knowing that, maybe the funeral home is not the place to do that, or at work is not the place to do that. Maturity is about you knowing when the impulses are not really working for you, or they're not going to get you the result that you really want in life. And so balance is always the key here. Let's see. When I feel socially uncomfortable, I often wish I could disappear. Yeah, what if that's in your own family? Yikes. I am often reluctant to be assertive or aggressive. It could be hard to move to action. It could be hard to step up and like turn your brilliant knowledge into actionable steps. So you might need help with that. Like, I've got all this information on how to run a business, but are you running a business? Is it profitable? Are you willing to take a risk? Are you willing to fail? Are you willing to step out there and let yourself be humiliated? So be courageous enough to suck at something. You're going to at first. And have that courage to that willingness to look foolish. That can be very hard for you to have people laugh at you. It's amazing. Some people they can have people criticize them, doesn't faze them. But I don't want people to laugh at me. And just think, 7s, that's our whole thing, is we hope people will laugh at us. Not laugh at us, but laugh with us. But, relaxing that a little bit and recognizing that, they probably laughed at Thomas Edison, who was probably a 5. They laughed at Albert Einstein, who was probably a 5. They've laughed at, all of these great inventors and creators, probably called them names. We probably would call them, various, disorders, because they were definitely neurodivergent people. And can you handle people laughing at you a little bit or misunderstanding you a little bit? Okay, so I dislike most social events. I'd rather be alone and with a few people that I know well. So again, notice the social obligations, right? Because you feel obligated when you're at those things. You have to smile and be nice and play with other people. And all of these vampires, they're all sucking the life out of you, drawing, your attention away from what you want to be interested in. You want to focus your attention on whatever it is at home that you love, what you're passionate about. Maybe it's archaeology, maybe it's New Testament studies, maybe whatever it is, I don't know. But now I have to be out here on the streets with all the vampires that want to talk to me about feelings and problems and drain the life right out of me. Number 15, I sometimes feel shy or awkward. A lot of 5s say that they feel like they missed a class on how to do relationships. Like it just feels like I don't know what to say next. It's hard for me to read verbal cues. It's hard for me to read facial cues. And I don't need you to like me. So what am I supposed to say right now? And so you could feel a little shy and awkward if you don't know how to do those relationships perfectly. Like learn from the 3s or maybe the 7s, maybe read a book like How to Win Friends and Influence People. And you might be like, I'm not going to read that. I don't want that. Okay, I get tired. I guess one thing I would say there, though, is if you go into every conversation like there's something to learn here, not these people are boring and unoriginal. If you go into a conversation with the mindset, these people are boring and unoriginal, and they just want to tap my energy, then of course, yeah, I mean, every interaction would probably feel uncomfortable and awkward. But if you go into those interactions with, this is a person who has a library of experiences and information that I don't have, I'm going into it with a curiosity, like, hey, Bob, tell me what you do for a living. I would see where that could be a lot more, like, don't put the weight on yourself. If you put the weight on yourself to carry the conversation, then you could feel very shy and overwhelmed and awkward. But put the weight on the other person. Ask questions. You're an investigator. Ask questions. Say, so Bob, what do you do for a living? What made you get into that? Has that been a rewarding career? How does your family feel about that career? Has there ever been anything else that you've thought about doing? These kinds of questions take you off the hook and put the weight on the other person. And, maybe they're an extrovert. Maybe they like it. Okay. I don't know. Let's keep moving. Feel shy and awkward. I get tired when I'm with people for too long. Yeah, the whole battery thing, right? Fives need to recharge their batteries. You only have so much bandwidth for low frequency people, and you got to go back and recharge your batteries. I feel different from most people. And again, I don't think that that's like a four, like I'm just different. I'm misunderstood. I just think in some ways you kind of are different. Like you like what you like and you kind of go off in your own direction and you're all about trains or you're all about dinosaurs or you're all about, you know, what is it? My son used to Tesla. Not, it was some kind of I don't know, some kind of electrical apparatus that he used to always talk about. I don't remember now. It was when he was like in middle school. Not a flux capacitor. That's what's coming to my mind. Back to the Future, the flux capacitor. It's not that. It's something else that Tesla invented. I don't know. It's like some kind of like lightning rod or something in a bottle. I don't remember what it was. You guys are probably like, Tom, you're such an idiot. I'm going to type it into the comments right now. Tesla's something. I don't remember what it was. Okay, so but you're interested in that thing and being around people too long, and feeling different because nobody else in the class is talking about these things. Nobody else in the class is interested in these things. I feel invisible. It surprises me when anybody notices anything about me. I think a brick on the show The Middle, who's kind of like invisible in his family, and he definitely fits that role of kind of like invisible. I don't look for material possessions to make me happy. Yeah, not a seven, right? Your sin isn't that kind of greed. It's not gluttony. Like I'm looking for material possessions. I would say though that I've met a lot of fives that are a little bit like this, even though that, that's a statement here that you're supposed to identify with. I've met fives that are very much like, I want this new thing. I want this new thing. Let's talk about this new thing. And I want this new thing. And I need that new thing. And then when I have that new, like hyper fixated on getting that thing. So I think, sometimes fives, you can be like that, like a seven. And then the last one is acting calm as a defense. It makes me feel stronger. Like when everybody's getting volatile, when everybody's like overreacting, you can kind of look at the nines and the fives maybe to bring us down and to calm things out and to like focus on being objective and remaining calm, remaining objective and calming the waters a little bit to talk through this problem so that we can solve it. Something else that I've just picked up recently is this book, The Enneagram Unfiltered by Elizabeth Orr. And I started with, because I just picked it up the other day, somebody recommended it. And I just started with some of the statements about fives. And I thought, no, this is so interesting. Let me give you an example. The five search for comprehension is far more of an attempt to establish a predictable pattern of behavior so that they can anticipate exactly how much this particular environment or relationship will cost them. It's interesting. Like, what is this? Again, a vampire. Like, what is this relationship going to cost me? In fact, the five is often missing in action and thus impossible to even for us to experience at all. They come into the office, clock in, fulfill their assigned tasks, and then maybe even their coworkers don't even know they exist, or they don't know their coworkers exist. And this world is overwhelming, bossy, intrusive place that takes much more than it gives. I mean, I'm going to be working on this book as well. Never stop learning, never stop growing. You guys inspire us to that. At your worst, you are the know-it-alls, the experts that nobody else could ever pass your class. But at your best, you inspire the rest of us to information, knowledge, and answers in life. And I thank you for that. And as always, be present to life. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.